All right, hello. We're going to quickly go over exam three preparations for your essay exams. Just kind of giving you little tips, little tricks, hints that are going to help you be prepared and write your exam three essay, building off of mistakes that were done in the past essays, making sure that you are engaging with the content for this unit, just making sure that you're prepared for this. So first off, here are the course materials for this unit on governing. It pulls from both of the textbooks. They're very similar to each other. They're almost one and the same in terms of the content that they cover. Only one covers the federal government side of things, the other covers the state government. So you'll see it starts with federal courts, we go into the California judiciary, and it's just basically seeing the flip side of the coin for each of the three branches, the stable institutions like the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative branches. Um, it gives you a comparison based on the federal and the state governments, and it just goes into in depth what are the intricacies and the differences between each of them. Because there's a good deal of differences between state and federal government, even though that the structure does look very similar. I also included the movie or the film or the videos that you guys included. So if you haven't already, definitely turn in those assignments, watch these videos, and you'll be very prepared for the essay exam. Down here, essay exam 3, it will get emailed out on Wednesday, December 13th, 2021. It is due that following Friday at 8 p.m. to Dr. Castro's email. So first things first, what are the branches of government? This is framed in the federal sense. So you have the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. The legislative is the bicameral bodies of Congress. You have the House of Representatives, you have the Senate. They make the laws. It has to pass through both bodies. Um, they approve the presidential appointments. That is the Senate who does that, so that's why you have all the cabinet hearings for appointees via the Senate based on whatever role that they are going to go into. It's usually that Senate committee that approves, and then the entire Senate approves as a whole. Um, the legislative branch is also very susceptible to democratic responsiveness. So you have a 2-year time frame for terms in the House of Representatives, and then you have a 6-year time frame for senators. Not all of them are at the same time. You'll have some senators who, are up for re-election in 2022, some of them who aren't up until 2026. Moving forward, we have the executive branch. This is the presidency. They sign, enforce, and veto laws. They appoint cabinet members. They appoint people to all kinds of agencies. Think, hmm, I believe that there was one in the news recently. I think it was for SEC. I think that's Gary Gensler, but essentially the president appoints all of these top positions to all these agencies, whether it be their cabinet, federal judges, various things, like I said with the SEC. And they can also pardon people. So that's a check on the judicial branch. Moving on to the judicial branch, they essentially interpret all of the laws to make sure that they are constitutional. They can overturn laws. They are appointed by presidents, current and past, and they have lifetime appointments. So I wanted to include this slide as a little bit of an explainer, just so that you're prepared for, thinking critically about the things that you're going to see in the textbook. This is mainly for the purpose of making sure that you are thinking a little bit critically about the things that you come across, the concepts that you come across. and hopefully it will prepare you for whatever the prompt is for exam 3. Because to be honest, if you just get the prompt and you just go back into the textbook and just kind of read up and see where you can just shoehorn answers into the prompt, it's not really going to be a well-informed essay, and um, it's just not a good way to prepare. So these are some questions. I'll go through them a little bit. So the first one, the structure of government is similar for both California and the United States, but there are little intricacies that make it different on a state government and a federal government level. How is the California Congress different from the US Congress? You can answer this by the number of people. Why exactly does the US Congress have the number of people that they do? Why exactly does the California Congress have the number of representatives that they do? Are both of them bicameral? Do both of them have senates? Uh, in terms of their interaction with the governor and the president, uh, what's the dynamic there? Um, we also have the governorship and the presidency. Those are both the executive branch roles. For a governor, what roles do they have over the state? I think they are labeled as the chief executive of the state. So it's essentially like the CEO of a state if a state were, a business. For the president, it's a little bit different. Sure, they are the commander in chief, but the roles are not the same for the two. So, what exactly are the differences based on the level? A lot of people assume that since the president is the president, most powerful role in the world, the governor is inherently below them. But many times the presidency has to kind of uh, cater to governors of certain states if they want to get policy passed. I know that when Obama was first elected, he convened all of the governors in America in order to just kind of have a rapport with them to make sure that, they're in his top five for, speed dials or however you want to say it. Um, so the governor is usually seen as kind of the more luxury role in politics. They can kind of do whatever they want with the state, if they play their cards right with their legislatures. So what's the difference between the governorship and the presidency? The presidency is also very beholden to certain factors and institutions within the federal government. One of the later questions will go into that a little bit. The state courts and the Supreme Court. There's also federal circuits. How do they differ? How do you go up the ranks? What's the progression? Because certain things can start off in the state and then go up to the Supreme Court of the United States. I know that right now we have a couple abortion bills coming from Texas and Mississippi, so those went through state courts before they actually got to the Supreme Court. So how exactly is that different on a state and federal level? For the second question, I want you to kind of think about the recall and how exactly a state's legislature will be affected by a party flip within the executive branch. Say that Gavin Newsom was recalled and we now have a governor elder. What exactly is that going to do? And I mean, hint, you can go look at the video that we did earlier in the semester, but what exactly does that have in terms of implications for the state legislature? And would it change the state judiciary? I know that for presidencies, uh, the president is able to appoint Supreme Court justices. Is it the same for a governor? Uh, why does party affiliation of the state legislature differ from the electorate? This was pulled directly from the textbook. You can see that there's, varying percentages for Democrat and Republican based on the Senate, the Assembly, and then the electorate. why is that so? How exactly do we get there? You can kind of touch upon redistricting and gerrymandering in this, but just come to a conclusion of why exactly is it not a one-for-one lookalike across all three of those metrics. For the U.S. government, we have obviously seen a lot of change of power based on majority party in the House, the Senate, the presidency. For the Supreme Court, it's a little bit different because we don't necessarily have like uh, parties within the Supreme Court, but of course, a Democratic president is going to appoint someone who maybe fits the more liberal interpretation of certain laws. And for a Republican president, they're going to pick a more conservative judge. Um, that's why elections have consequences not just on the policy level, but also for the judiciary. Um, so we're just going to call that partisan tilt. Over the last 25 years, there's been a lot of change in, transitions of power. How exactly do the institutions change each time a party flips? Uh, for the House, you can say that impeachment proceedings would have never happened if we didn't have a Democratic House while President Donald Trump was still in office. For the Senate, a lot of appointments. Essentially, if you have a split party between the executive and the Senate, that kind of screws up a lot of your cabinet appointments because, you know, a very Republican Senate is not going to approve a lot of a Democratic president's, appointment. So how exactly do you reconcile with that? How exactly do the institutions change? Think about different scenarios of like, oh, if Democrats held the House and the Senate, but not the presidency, if what if a party held all of them by a very healthy margin? There's, I think, what, six uh, quote unquote conservative justices on the Supreme Court. What exactly will that do with, very liberal legislations? Um, for the next question, we're getting into the COVID-19 pandemic. How exactly did these institutions use their emergency powers, and how exactly do these actors use their powers in general? I want you to think about, what acts did Congress pass? What infighting in Congress between the House of Representatives and the Senate was there to pass certain, you know, acts and laws and relief bills and things like that? For the executive branch, what powers did the president have in terms of, motivating COVID response and public health powers, and can we just defer everything to the states? Is that a good way to have a decentralized public health response? What did legislatures for the states do? I know as soon as the COVID pandemic started up, the California legislature was like, bye, I'm going home. And Gavin Newsom did all of his emergency powers that he could to uh, kind of sway the state's public health direction as a whole. So he sort of did it unilaterally, but it was either that or nothing because the legislature was not there. So how exactly do these people use their powers to push policy? This next one is very long, but it will get you thinking a little bit more because it's a very real world example. So, President Biden has an agenda that he wants to push, but he is getting pushback from both the opposition party, and also Democratic senators who maybe are not as progressive as the rest of the party. With that, he was a very well received president upon election because of his vote margins, and usually with political capital, the bigger your electoral victory margin is, the more, emboldened that you feel. We saw that with Gavin Newsom during the recall. He was very emboldened because he got, what, like 60% of the vote or something like that. Um, why is he having trouble getting things like universal child care, infrastructure bill, things like that, very popular things like student debt cancellation? Why is he having trouble getting that passed? Um, Hint, I already said it, it's political capital, but think more about the structure of these institutions. Why exactly can Biden just not snap his fingers and have it be done? Uh, what pathways and routes does he have to take as president in order to get these bills passed? If he's just writing executive orders willy nilly, is that gonna hurt or help his polling um, during his re-election campaign? Since I guess he's floating that he's going to be running again in 2024, how exactly is that going to affect his optics? That he just, did everything he wanted by sidestepping Congress. So I want you thinking in terms of that, based on the actual institution and what exactly he has to do. And on the flip side, with the state, how exactly does a governor reconcile with the same pushback? Um, Gavin Newsom, after getting recalled, signed a lot of bills into law for California, um, and it was a lot. I think it was more than a dozen a day at one point. And it was like right after he got, or I guess got retained. Um, how exactly is it different for Gavin Newsom with his government and with his legislature than it is for President Biden with his legislature and Congress? Um, how come a governor can get bills passed with very minimal friction, but with Biden, it takes, a midnight vote in order to not have a government shutdown, like we just had today. So think about these questions while you're reading. Think about the institutions. Think about the powers that these institutions have, how that context changes with party, and how exactly they need to work together in order to actually have policy success or even pass something. So this is a fun little graphic that I pulled, and it actually, I just like that it's very descriptive in terms of where exactly your vote goes, who, um, elects who appoints who can approve what. It's a good little visualization of the things that you learned in this unit with governing. Uh, we vote for people both on the city level, the county level, the local level, the state level, the federal level. Um, you have propositions for each state. You have really just president and House of Representatives and Senate on the federal level, but then again, that's still kind of like mixing states. But regardless, during an election, you vote, but after that, what happens? We have a very representative government, and you don't necessarily vote for the president because popular vote doesn't necessarily matter. Uh, you essentially elect an elector in the electoral college who then elects the president. President and vice president get ratified by the sitting vice president via the election results that come in from each state. So, there's a lot of nuance to this whole framework. And I think just analyzing this will help you uh, make the text that you read be a little bit more visual in your brain when you're writing these things, because it's easy to just say like, oh yeah, House of Representatives, you have the Senate, they make legislation and states' rights, so you can pass something at the federal level, like marijuana is still legal, but why is California, legalizing recreational marijuana. Um, are you going to get a knock on the door from the feds when you're using recreational marijuana? How exactly do you get protected from that? How is it enforced? Who enforces it? If you, um, you know, take solace in something being legal in your state, but federally it isn't, or even the flip side of, something is illegal in your state, or many bills are being introduced to make something illegal in your state, can you find solace in the federal government? Which supersedes what? A whole bunch of federalism mumbo jumbo, but yeah, this visual hopefully helps you out a little bit. So just to recap what exactly is expected for some of these exams, these essays, uh, you need to use the reading, the textbook, the PowerPoints, everything that you have available in the class in order to write these. Make sure that you are being very proactive in understanding the content. You don't want to waste precious time. I mean, you already have the textbook, you already have what exactly you're going to be pulling from in order to write this essay. You don't want to use up your time between that Wednesday and Friday, I think it is, uh, going back and trying to relearn the course in order to write the essay. Because this is very fast paced. You should probably start doing your outline as soon as you get the prompt. Use the PowerPoints to guide your way through the reading. Don't use it as a substitute for the reading. The textbook has a lot of good examples for, good citation, good things that you can pull from. It has context. It has very minute details that you can use in the essay. Just make sure that you're coming into this very prepared and knowing what exactly you need to expect for this. Obviously, structure is still the same. Minimum page count, 4 pages. Make sure that you're hitting the desired length. You should have numbered pages in the footer, single space, 1 inch margins, Times New Roman, 12-point font. For the content, make sure that you're actually answering the question. Make sure that you're posing an argument. You're putting forth an assertion, not just kind of like copying and pasting the textbook into your essay to bulk it up a little bit. Make sure that you're actually making an argument. I'm sure if you do everything that was on the previous slides and prepare, then it should come very easy to you. It'll be like, having a conversation with yourself. Um, Make sure that your arguments are supported by the sources that you cite. Don't just throw in a source because you need to hit a certain limit. Make sure that it actually flows well. Well, we'll get to that in another slide, but make sure that you are being coherent. Make sure that you're drawing from everything in the class. Make sure that you're actually answering the question, not really just kind of rehashing what you already learned in the textbook or just giving a whole bunch of summary and plot. We want actual explanations and, engaging with the material. So here are some essay sins from the first two exams that we wanted to point out. Um, Dr. Castro noted that some of these things shouldn't have been there in the first two and hopefully aren't in there for the last one, number three. So just to go into it, lack of structure. Lack of structure is a big one because essentially undercuts all of your argument. If your essay does not have structure, you're not going to have a good argument, and it's not going to be substantive. Imagine being an audience or being a reader, and you're reading Harry Potter, and you read chapter 13, then 34, then 4, then 5, then 9. You're not really going to know what's going on, and it's not really going to be a very compelling read. So make sure that you have structure. A lot of people are not immediately answering the call of the question. Your reader doesn't want to read through, 2 pages and 5 paragraphs of plot and summary and exposition before they actually get to your answer, because by then you you know have wasted time, you've wasted space on your essay, and your reader is probably bored now. They could have just read the textbook instead of listening to your you know, rehashed rendition of what you think is plot and what you think is supporting your thesis, but really it's just taking away from it because your reader is already bored by the time they get to your thesis and you don't have enough time to actually answer the question. So definitely have, like a little bit of summary, a little bit of explanation, then go into your thesis. This builds on the third topic, or the third bullet point. Too much summary before actually getting to the response to the prompt. You should have a very tight introduction, introduce it, um, have your thesis, make your assertions, have your points, and then explain your points, wrap it all up in the conclusion, make sure that you're citing as you're going through. A lot of people aren't citing from everything within the class. Of course, certain things are more important. You're obviously going to cite certain, class materials more than others, but you should be using essentially everything. I believe it's 75% of your citation should be from the in-class materials, and then 25% I think should be, or could be from outside. Just make sure that you are including everything in your essay, or else you're going to have a very, narrow-minded, narrowly cited citation list. Some people are not following exam criteria, which is the easiest thing. We already give it to you. These are the things that you need to hit. It's not even, you know, subjective. It's just like, hey, hit this page requirement, have this number formatting in your essay, put it in your footer, have it be this kind of spacing, etc. Um, Make sure that you're hitting those. Like those are the easy ones. That's just formatting. It's super easy. Not developing your arguments based on referenced citations that were referenced in your works cited. Make sure that you are actually, using good quotations, good citations, good examples that support your argument. You don't want to have an argument that is being supported by something that's totally different or even undercuts your argument because it's just going to be, you on your soapbox talking with no actual examples that you're pulling from the text in order to support your argument. I'm sure that you are not an expert in, whatever the prompt is going to be, whatever political science concept that you're going to be writing on. So you need to pull in references, even if you are experienced. It's always, in peer-reviewed articles and dissertations and things that, people leading this field write. It's going to be pulling from references and works cited and other articles that support their argument. You need to have a little bit of a very broad consensus with your findings. Remedies to all of these. Make an outline first. As soon as you get the prompt, make an outline. You can honestly, you've done this twice before. I guess I would recommend going back at your two previous exams, and if you didn't do an outline for those, structure an outline just to see if you can get some practice in actually making an essay outline based off of previous prompts. That can be a good little practice if you've never, made an outline before for an essay. Uh, you know, just practice it because sometimes it is a little bit shaky your first time. You don't know how much detail to put in your outline, how exactly to structure it. Um, just go back and practice on your previous exams. You can start now. You can go back into the textbook. You can start pulling citations and start pulling little things and, engage with the text and the PowerPoints and the audio lectures in a way that, will help you prepare for exam 3. That's why I put the previous slide with all the questions in it. I want you to be thinking about what you're learning within the course material, because then that's going to make exam 3 a breeze. It's just, as I said, going to be like a conversation with yourself. Um, Bookmark the text, save little quotes inside the material. I make the suggestion of maybe for each one of the class media, so like with the films, with the textbook, with the PowerPoints, with the audio, uh, save 4 quotes for each one that you know will probably use in the essay. At least one of those 4 will be useful, depending on the prompt. While you're writing your essay, format as you go. It'll help with that. The very easy bullet point with the exam criteria. Make sure that you're hitting the page length. Make sure you're numbering things. Definitely format as you go. Don't leave it until the last minute, because if you just format a whole like block of text and expect it to be, hitting all the marks, you may miss something. You may miss a number in the footer. You may uh, go from, like 11-point font to 12-point font and realize, oh, it's not 4 pages. I need to add more. I'm going to add fluff. I'm going to put things in that don't make sense with my whole argument. So definitely format as you go. Um, any other pointers? Personally, for me, with writing exams, uh, I always handwrite and then I speech to text, and then I maybe like run it through Grammarly, any kind of service. I believe the school gives Grammarly to you for free. Just make sure that there are multiple points where you're essentially like rewriting your essay multiple times, because you're gonna catch the mistakes. You're gonna maybe read it back to yourself and think like, oh, that doesn't sound very good, or that doesn't sound grammatically correct. Let me rewrite that in another way. Maybe in rewriting it, you come across another thing that you can think critically about that you can add further into your exam. Um, just make sure that you are going through multiple checkpoints of, does this sound right? Is this good? Will Dr. Castro be impressed? So, you can email me any questions. Many of you have been messaging me on Canvas. I respond pretty quickly. I have Canvas on my phone, so hopefully I get your message very quickly. I also have Outlook on my phone, so anything I will definitely know. If I don't respond, maybe send it again, because I probably did not get it. I have workshops scheduled next week. I'm still trying to find out a time. Um, for those of you who don't know, I have a full-time job on top of grad school, so my time can be limited at times, but definitely if you want to set up an appointment that can be one-on-one or in like a small group, email me, message me, reach out. I will find time to do it. Uh, and remember to send in your film and one-pager assignments before 12/12. I am grading those, and I don't want to get hundreds of papers turned into me on the last day, because I have finals too, guys. Please don't have me stay up until midnight grading. All right, good luck. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and good night.